Hey everybody, we got a shot and a demo reel to look at today, so let's jump right in. This one is from Marie on Discord, and you said you were going for sort of a dreamy, romantic feel, like the feeling that you're in love, which you provided some references here, and I think you've got a lot working for you here. That's going well. There's a couple things I noticed right off the bat. I think you're using a lot of bloom, which I think is nice. I'm a fan of bloom. I like it when used appropriately. And I think what you've done is really nice here. It's spilling over the face of the character. I do think, the first thing I noticed was the quality of the light is quite hard on her face. And what I mean by that is, your shadows are not soft. Here the Terminator is quite sharp. If you look at some of these other examples, this one, they're using the sunlight behind her as a rim, and then they're bouncing it off a card or probably maybe another light in front of camera, so it looks really soft on her face. And you can see, right, there's not really any cast shadows or anything on her face. She's just being lit up. And I think, it kind of adds to this sort of soft feeling of the image. This one as well, there are more form shadows here, but you can see, it's still very soft, and it makes her skin look soft, and it makes it sort of dreamy looking. So, I think there's two things, maybe three things contributing here is the softness of the light, the bloom, as well as the softness of the depth of field. And I think here your softness of the light could be much, much softer, I think. You have freedom as to where you want to place the light, and I think it could be nice to place the light similar to this image, more behind her, so you get a harsher rim on the side of her face, and then wrap the light around so you get it getting pretty soft and sort of a gradient from the screen right side of her face to the left side of her face. That way you get some light contribution on her screen left eye as well. This eye is really sparkling, and it looks really nice, I think. I was just looking if you can see him in there. That would be cool. But I think to get a little bit more light into the caustic part, the iris part of this screen left eye would be nice, and just sort of overall making the quality of light on her a lot softer, I think would help you out quite a bit with this feeling. I think the other thing is the depth of field to me feels a little bit confusing, because it sort of looks like a split diopter shot to me. If you don't know what that is, that's Brian De Palma likes to do this, but basically it's something that they put in front of the lens that makes two parts of the image in focus, and it's not a natural effect. It's used for story points, stuff like that. Great movie, by the way, Blowout. But it sort of looks like that's what's happening here, where her face is fully in focus, and then it almost looks like his eye or this part of his hair is in focus, whereas all this stuff is really blurry and blown out. I think if you were going for this sort of effect, I would probably treat him more as a foreground element, and you can blur him out and lower the aperture number, make the depth of field more shallow. Because you can see even here, right, like, pet peeve of mine a little bit, it's only one eye is in focus here. This eye is not in focus, it looks like, at least. And, to me, I think this is a little bit too much. I would prefer both eyes to be in focus here, but it's getting away from what we're talking about. The depth of field here, I think, is something that's helping this look really nice and soft. And here as well, you can see it's on her eyelash, her eye right there, and even her chin is out of focus here. If you were to go further with it on your shot, I think maybe she could stay in focus. Maybe you would lose her neck by the tiniest bit, but he would just be, not completely obliterated, but he would be more of a shape. And you can use that to sort of guide the eye towards her, because we don't, as a viewer, I don't care really about seeing his eyebrow here, in focus. I think the point of this shot, it sounds like what you're going for at least, is to convey her emotions. And as long as we can tell this is a person, we understand the story here. So I think, reducing that depth of field a little bit more would help you a lot here, as well as softening out that light. And yeah, I think the level of bloom you have is working. I would just see what the light does when you move it back, because the way it's spilling here, it almost feels like they're being lit by a light that's inside the cafe or whatever building they're in, rather than outside of the cafe, outside of this window, I think it is. You see how it looks like it's bleeding in from the top. So I'd be curious if you move it behind her, wrap the light around her, and then bloom the highlights from there. That might kind of get you a more natural effect. But yeah, I do see what you're doing here with the halation from the light hitting the lens. So yeah, I would play around with what's happening here. You can do something like this where you have a broad light coming from what is supposedly the bounce from the sunlight hitting these outside buildings here. Just general soft light from screen right to screen left, and then play that hard source behind her and keep it as a rib. Hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any more questions about that. All right, we've also got a reel from Keldon. Let's take a look. Monsters at work. Nice. Awesome. Great job with this. I think this is looking really cool. So it seems like you've had at least one show, or actually two shows, at least two shows that you've worked on so far professionally, which is awesome. And you still have some personal projects in there, which I do like to see, especially for junior artists. Something with professional work is that people who are reviewing your work don't exactly know what you did on the project. I think benefit of the doubt, you did everything and you made all the right decisions and creative decisions here, but it is something I think on the back of people's minds where maybe you just got this set up for you and you just hit render. It's totally possible. Not saying that's what you did, but I'm just saying that I think including personal projects in here when you're sort of early on in your career is still a good thing, in my opinion, just because we're sure that you did this yourself and that we're sure that you have good taste, pretty much. So starting from the beginning, I think this is a great one to start off with. I think it's really dramatic. I think you've lit this well. Character shaping looks good, and the overall shot composition looks great. The eye goes to where it wants to go, and I think you've handled the camera move really well. It's not something easy to do, so great job starting on this. I would say, I know it says the trademark, Disney trademark down here. I would probably put the name of the project and actually probably the name of the studio down here as well. I think, oftentimes if I didn't know this was Monsters at Work, I might not have known what it is. And if we want to look more into detail about what this project is, it would be helpful to have that down there. So I would consider putting that, maybe you put shot lighting and compositing, and then below that, a little bit smaller, you put Monsters at Work, and then whatever studio you worked at is. But yeah, this is looking good. I like these icons in the corner here as well. This is cool. Kind of shows you can do effects and character integration and effects integration, so that's looking good. I think, one thing to note, when you do have professional work, I think it's tempting to put all of your professional work on your reel. And it seems like you've been selective with what you put on there, which I think is the right move. But, you really need to think about what is each piece showing. Because if you just put, this is general advice, but if you just put, 5 scenes, 10 scenes from your project that you worked on, and they're all pretty much the same scene, it's kind of a waste of time in terms of showing whoever's viewing it what you can do, how valuable you are as an artist to them. So, I think you've done a good job picking variety here, which is great. This one, I think there's some things with this one that is not fully clicking with me, and I think, a big part of it is how warm it feels back here, especially when you have this blue sky here. It feels like I feel a little bit of a disconnect between that, and it feels like it should be getting more sky fill, more blue notes, and it feels too warm in the background to me. And I think it also feels a little bit too ambiently lit in the background. Like this table and this table is kind of getting lit just straight on from the front, and it loses a little bit of interest for me in the background. I think something like Toy Story 4, which they really went to great depths to make it realistic in terms of exposure and lighting. Yeah, so I was looking at something like this where sort of a similar situation. I know it's, not quite as dreamy as what you're going for, but, having this warm light coming in, but because you can see this cool fill in the window, you see this cool contribution throughout the scene, and I think it really just balances out the color temperatures and gives a little bit less of a monochromatic sort of feel to the image. That might be something to consider with these, because you can notice daylight is fairly cool, So stuff like this, you always get that sky contribution. And if you're showing a window in your scene, I think it would make sense to sort of feel that blue a little bit more in here. The other thing with these personal projects, which I do appreciate you put personal project down there, is the term master lighting. And I think what you mean by this is that you did everything, which is great. But it can be confusing because some people call master lighting like setting up the lighting shot. So to me, it can be a little bit confusing in that master lighting sounds like you just did a setup of the light rig and then gave it to someone else to do the shot lighting, which I don't think is what you mean. But I would probably change this to shot lighting. I think for all of your personal projects, you put master lighting. Yeah, I appreciate what you're trying to do. I understand what you mean, but I think in the context of a reel, I think it might just be a little bit confusing for people. So I would probably just put shot lighting there, or shot setup and shot lighting or something like that, just so it's very clear. Keep in mind, like as people are going through reels, they're going through like 20 at a time, and they maybe only have an hour scheduled, and that's can just be how it is. So you really want to minimize the amount of questions that people have, and just make everything as clear as possible. So project name and then exactly what you did on there. This one's really cool. I like this. I think it shows you can do stylized, more kind of genre stuff. So this is great to have in there. I love this shot. It looks really awesome. This is very cool too. This one, I'm a little bit less convinced by. I think your reel is on the longer side, not too long, but I think it's on the longer side. So this one I think is kind of more of the less strong pieces. I think the character is looking a little bit flat, and that's partially to do with the materials on him. And then his eyes here, I think, are looking a little bit uneven, I suppose. So, I mean, if you're looking for something to cut, I might recommend this one. I think definitely also this football scene feels a little bit off to me. I think because of the way that they dealt with exposure here, it doesn't feel like a sunny day to me. It sort of, I mean, even though there's blue skies and little clouds, the exposure seems really dark. And then here, the characters are feeling rather flat, especially their horns and their faces. I feel like the shaping on these characters is not as strong as your previous work, so I would consider cutting this as well. Even this one, I think it's feeling rather washed out, the entire image. But yeah, I love these character close-ups. I think especially this shot and this shot, I think the shaping on the characters is done really well, and I think the material of the characters really comes through. Love that. It's pretty cool. This one's really nice as well. I like your character lighting here, and again, personal work always helps to show that you're the one that was in control of that entire shot. I think this one, you could leave in there. I think the materials aren't doing you too much favors. I think if you can imagine if these were car paint, shiny, might look cooler with more interest, but I think whatever the constraints were of the show, are there for you. You can keep it in there. I think it shows you can show movement and dynamic lighting here, action lighting, so that's fine. This one's really nice. I really like the character lighting you did here. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a really strong reel. I think there's a couple things that if I could suggest, I would probably cut. Mainly this football sequence and maybe this one as well. But yeah, great job with this. I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions or need some clarification on anything I said. All these reel reviews end up being a little bit kind of rambly and all over the place just because I'm thinking of these things as they come. But we did look at quite a bit of reels at work for me recently, so it's good. I'm kind of in that headspace. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.